Welcome to 7.3, addition and subtraction formulas. So we'll use these formulas throughout the lesson today. So let's get started. So express as a function of a complementary angle. All right, so the sine of 15 degrees, 20 minutes. Okay, so all you have to do is understand that the sine and the cosine go hand in hand. The sine of u is going to be equal to the cosine of 90 minus that. So to figure out what 90 minus 15 degrees 20 minutes is, if we add 40 minutes to it, minutes, that gets us to 16 degrees, and 90 minus 16 is going to be 74. All right, so for 1a, your answer, complementary cofunction, is the cosine of 74 degrees 40 minutes. Okay, so that was 1a. All right, and then 1b, cosine of 73 degrees 12 minutes would be the sine. Cofunction would be the sine. So we need to get 12 minutes up to 60, so that would be 48 minutes. Gets us up to 74 degrees, and that's 16 degrees. So 16 degrees, 48 minutes would get us to 90. Okay, so if you want to do it the hard way, you could do 89 degrees and 60 minutes, because 60 minutes adds a degree to make it 90, and we subtract this. Okay, so 60 minus 12 is going to be 48, and 89 minus 73 is 16. Okay, that's how we figured it out. So 1c, the cofunction, tangent of pi over 6. Okay, so think about where you are on the unit circle. Pi over 6 is right here. What would be the tangent of pi over 6 is the opposite leg over adjacent leg. So we're talking about this part. So the cotangent is the other function of 60 degrees. All right, so it'd be, what is 60 degrees? So the cotangent of pi over 3. So the opposite angles are what you're using with the cofunctions. And 1d, the secant. Okay, secant of 17.28 degrees. So the cofunction of secant is cosecant. And we do the exact same thing. 17.28 degrees, so 90 minus that. And so 89, 9, 10, 2, 7, 2, and 7. So this would be 72.72 degrees. Cosecant. All right, number 2, tangent goes with cotangent. And again, just do 89 degrees and 60 minutes and subtract those. And you'll get the cotangent function, which is the cofunction of this. So that's 10 minutes. And 89 minus 37 is 52. Sine goes with cosine, the cofunction. And again, the same thing, 89 degrees is 60 minutes. So really this is going to be 0 degrees, 19 minutes. And the cosine goes with the sine. Again, visually speaking, if you're at pi over 3, okay, on the unit circle, and that's the cosine, so that means the sine, the cosine is here, the sine is going to be, of the 30 degree angle is going to be what? Pi over 6. All right, so this is 60, this is 30 in degrees. So is the cofunction, they add up to 90 degrees. And cotangent, so these two numbers have to add up to 90 degrees. So take 89.910. Okay, so I did what we did on the other page, 90 degrees, and you cross out your, I'll just show you. 90 and 61.87. 8, that's 9, and that's 10 there. So that's going to be 3, 1, and 28. The tangent of 28.13 degrees. Well, I must have skipped number 3, so let me see if I can find number 3 here. I'll add it to it. All right, there it is. Ta-da! Now let's do all of these. So cosine goes with sine. Sine of, instead of pi over 8, that should be, take the pi over 2 minus the pi over 8. That's your function. So the cosine of pi over 8 is equal to the sine of pi over 2 minus u. U is the whatever you're taking the cofunction of. So we get a common denominator multiplied by 4. So 4 minus the 1 gives me 3 pi over 8. Okay, same thing here. Cosine of going to be pi over 2 minus the 1/4. So we get a common denominator. And so it's the cosine of 2 pi minus 1 all over 4. Nothing else you can do about it. They're different values, different variables. One has a pi and the other one doesn't, so they can't go together. All right, same type of thing here. The tangent goes with cotangent, and again, that's going to be pi over 2 minus 1, which is 2 over 2 for a common denominator. So it's the cotangent of pi minus 2 all over 2. Now the cosecant of 0.53, so you're going to say that's the secant of pi over 2 minus 0.53. Nothing you can do about it. They're just different entities, so they can't go together. All right, number 4, sine of pi over 12. So again, do pi over 2 minus pi over 12. They have the same values, so we got a common denominator there. So 6 minus 1 gives us the 5. So this would be the cosine of 5 pi over 12. And this would be the sine of pi over 2 minus 1/5. Get a common denominator. And then write that like 5 pi minus 2 all over 10. Tangent square root of 2 would be the cotangent of pi over 2 minus the square root of 2. All right. Get a common denominator if you want. Multiplied by 2. So it's the cotangent of pi minus 2 square root of 2 all over 2. Okay, secant goes with cosecant. And again, you have pi over 2 minus 1.2. Nothing you can do with that one. Pi over 2 minus 1.2. All right, find the exact values. So here we have the addition of two cosine values. And the x value of pi over 4 is going to be square root of 2 over 2. And the x value of pi over 6, okay, pi over 6, x value is square root of 3 over 2. So this is square root of 2 plus the square root of 3 all over 2. And now we have the cosine of 5 pi over 12. It says to use this, so we do the cosine of pi over 4 plus pi over 6, with the cosine of that whole thing. And so now we can use our addition formula, which is cosine of the first times cosine of the second minus sine of the first, sine of the second. Okay, so the cosine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2 times the cosine of pi over 6, which is square root of 3 over 2, minus the sine of pi over 4, which is still square root of 2 over 2, and the sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. So this is square root of 6 minus square root of 2 all over 4, because they have the same denominator. And that would be the answer. All right, so sine of 2 pi over 3 is right there. The sine is going to be square root of 3 over 2 plus, and the sine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2. So the answer is square root of 3 plus square root of 2 all over 2. And then here we have a sum formula for sine of 2 pi over 3 plus pi over 4. All right, so the sum for two angles in sine would be the sine of the first cosine, 2 pi over 3, cosine of the second, pi over 4, plus cosine of the first, sine of the second. All right, so what is the sine of 2 pi over 3? Square root of 3 over 2. Cosine of pi over 4, square root of 2 over 2. Cosine of 2 pi over 3 is negative 1/2. And the sine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2. So here we have the square root of 6 minus the square root of 2 all over 4. And number 7, tangent at 60 degrees is square root of 3 over 2 all over 1/2. so that's the square root of 3. Tangent of 225 degrees is a 45-degree angle there. The tangent is going to be positive. That's going to be 1. So the answer there is square root of 3 plus 1. Not times 1, plus 1. So screwed that up. Plus 1. So that's the answer because you can't put those together. All right, now we have the summation of tangent. So tangent of 60 plus 225. Now look at what they did. They took 285, which is not, it's on a unit circle, but we don't know the numbers. So we found two numbers that we do know the answers to, and we can figure this out. And that's the key. So 285, we broke it down into 225 and 60. All right, if you can find another set of numbers, you could use those as well. So the tangent summation is the tangent of the first plus the tangent of the second all over 1 minus the tangent of the first times the tangent of the second. Okay, so now what do we have? At 60 degrees, our tangent is square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2 is square root of 3. Tangent at 225, that's 45 degrees. The tangent at 225 is 1, which that's why they gave us that up there. And 1 minus the tangent of 60 times the tangent of the 225, we get square root of 3 plus 1 all over 1 minus the square root of 3. And so now we do the next level of rationalization, multiply by the difference of squares, top and bottom. That's the difference of squares on the bottom. So square the first, square the second, put a minus sign between them, negative 2 on the bottom. On top, you're just going to have to work this out. That's the square root of 3 plus 3 plus 1 plus square root of 3. So this is 4 plus 2 square root of 3. And the negative goes into both of them, so negative 2 minus the square root of 3 is the answer. All right, cosine of 225, again, 45-degree reference. So the cosine is negative square root of 2 over 2 minus cosine of 30 degrees is positive square root of 3 over 2. So negative square root of 2 minus square root of 3 all over 2 is that answer. Cosine of 195, again, they tell you which two numbers you could use, which is very nice of them. I'm not sure why they do that. It's a minus of cosines. So it's the cosine of 225 minus 30. Gives us the cosine of the first times the cosine of the second plus the sine of the first times the sine of the second. Okay, so what do we have here? Cosine of 225 is negative square root of 2 over 2. Cosine of 30 degrees is square root of 3 over 2. Okay, the sine of 225 is negative square root of 2 over 2. Sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. So negative square root of 6 minus the square root of 2 all over 4. That's your answer. Number 9. Sine of pi over 4, square root of 2 over 2. Sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. So square root of 2 minus 1 all over 2. And I'm not sure why they keep giving you these. So the sine subtraction formula is the sine of the first, 4, and the cosine of the second, minus cosine of the first, sine of the second. Okay, sine of pi over 4, square root of 2 over 2. Cosine of 30 degrees is square root of 3 over 2. Cosine of pi over 4, sine of pi over 6, square root of 6 minus square root of 2 all over 4. Here we have the tangent, 3 pi over 4. Tangent is going to be negative there, negative 1. You have a minus of tangent pi over 6. So that's going to be 1 over square root of 3. All right, or square root of 3 over 3. We can just write it like that because you know that's what it's going to be. Get a common denominator here. So negative 3 minus the square root of 3 all over 3. So now the tangent of 7 pi over 12, we're going to use a minus tangent formula. So tangent of the first minus tangent of the second all over 1 plus tangent of the first, tangent of the second. So the tangent of 3 pi over 4 is negative 1. Tangent of pi over 6 is going to be square root of 3 over 3. So that's what we had at the top there. And on the bottom, we have 1 plus negative 1 times square root of 3 over 3. All right, so on top, I'm going to use what we rationalize that to, negative 3 minus square root of 3 over 3. On the bottom, you get 1 minus square root of 3 over 3. So again, you got to get a common denominator. So negative 3 minus square root of 3 all over 3 over 3 minus square root of 3 over 3. So you take the top times the reciprocal of the bottom, 3 over 3 minus square root of 3. And so you have negative 3 minus square root of 3 all over 3 minus square root of 3. Okay? So if we rationalize this, it's going to be weird. 3 plus the square root of 3 over 3 plus the square root of 3. Difference of squares. The bottom becomes 9 minus 3 over 6. All right? The top is negative 9 minus 3 square root of 3 minus 3 square root of 3 minus 3. So negative 9 minus 3 is negative 12 minus 6 square root of 3 all over 6. And 6 goes into both of those, so negative 2 minus square root of 3 is the answer. All right. Express as a trigonometric function of one angle. So first of all, it's addition. Notice you have two cosines first. So if you look at your formula sheet, this is going to be the cosine of the first minus the second. So 70 minus 53, or the cosine of 17 degrees. Pretty simple. All right, next one. You have cosine and cosine again, and a minus sign. So that would be the cosine of the addition of those two values, 6 plus 25, or the cosine of 31 degrees. Now you have cosine, sine, and a minus sign, cosine and sine, and then a minus sign. So that's going to be the sine of the difference of these two numbers. So just take 82 minus 61. Okay, and that's 21 degrees. And you have sine, cosine, and an addition. Sine, cosine, and addition. So this is the sine of the addition of 57 plus 4, or the sine of 61 degrees. And now cosine, sine, and a negative sign. Cosine, sine, and a negative sign would be the sine of the difference of, this is, you got to get these in the right order. Okay, so it would be negative 2 minus 3. So you got to be careful. It's the sine, it gives you this one first as what you're doing. So this should be the sine of negative 5. Not negative 5 degrees, just negative 5. Okay, and now we do 16 sine and cosine with a plus sign. So that is going to be the sine of the two added together. So negative 5 plus 2. So that's sine of negative 3. So again, if you look at that, cosine of negative 5 is the same as cosine of 5. The negative doesn't change on the cosine. Okay, so the y value is negative and the tangent's positive. That means x and y are both negative. So I'm in the third quadrant, somewhere over here. So here we have the sign of a minus to figure out certain things. So let's do our sign addition and subtraction formulas here. So this is going to be sine of alpha, cosine of pi over 3, minus cosine of alpha, sine of pi over 3. All right, the sine of alpha is negative 5/13. The cosine of 60 degrees is going to be 1/2. Cosine of alpha, if we want to know what that is, so this is negative 5, that's 13. That's negative 12. 5, 12, 13 triangle. So the cosine is negative 12 over 13. And the sine of 60 degrees is square root of 3 over 2. So now we have negative 5 minus negative 12 square root of 3, so plus, all over 26. And that is actually our answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and do number 18. So the cosine, that was C17. Number 18. Cosine is positive and the y is negative. For x to be positive, y is negative. You're in the fourth quadrant. Okay, we're in the fourth quadrant, somewhere down here. We have the cosine with an addition. So the cosine addition would be cosine of alpha, cosine of pi over 6, minus sine of alpha, sine of pi over 6. So the cosine of alpha is 24 over 25. Cosine of 30 degrees is square root of 3 over 2. The sine of alpha we have to figure out. So the cosine of alpha is 24, the adjacent leg, over the hypotenuse. And then we use a Pythagorean theorem to get y. Okay, so 24 squared plus y squared equals 25 squared. So use your calculator and you figure out what 25 squared is. So that's 625. And 24 squared, that's 576. And subtract it. So 625 minus 576 is equal to 49. So y is 7. So now the sine of alpha is 7 over 25, opposite over hypotenuse. And the sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. So 24 square root of 3 minus 7 all over 50. That's 18. All right, so I'm going to clean this up and do number 19. Actually, I'll do something different here. All right, so I copied the rest of these on their own slides. So let's move on to number 19. So number 19, secant of x equals 3. So that's 1 over cosine, or cosine of x is equal to 1/3. All right, so cosecant of x goes with sine. So the y value, so this goes with sine, so that's the y value. The y value is negative. So cosine is positive, y is negative. X is positive, y is negative. You're in the fourth quadrant. Okay. And the cosine is 1/3. So adjacent over hypotenuse. So we're going to probably have to get that. So the cosine of subtraction here. So that's going to be the cosine of the first. So cosine of x, cosine of the second, plus sine of the first, sine of the second. Okay, so now the cosine of x, we have that, that's 1/3. Cosine of pi over 4, square root of 2 over 2. Sine of x, we'll have to figure out. So 1 squared plus y squared equals 3 squared. So 9 minus 1 is 8. So it's the square root of 8. So that's 4 and 2, or 2 square root of 2. So that's 2 square root of 2. The sine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2. All right, those cancel out, and square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2. And over here we have the square root of 2 over 6. All right, again, we've got to get a common denominator, so that's going to be the square root of 2 plus 12 all over 6. Number 20, tangent of x is 1/4. So that's positive. Secant goes with cosine. Oops. So the cosine, so that's x. X is positive. So for tangent to be positive and x is positive, y has to be positive. So you're in the first quadrant. So again, let's go ahead and do this. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So what is your hypotenuse? 1 squared plus 4 squared equals hypotenuse squared. 1 plus 16. So h is equal to the square root of 17. Okay, so now what do we have? Sine of an addition. So that's sine of the first, cosine of the second, plus cosine of the first, sine of the second. So sine of x, again, that's x, that'd be 1 over square root of 17. Cosine of pi over 3 is 1/2. Cosine of x is 4 over the square root of 17. And the sine of pi over 3 is square root of 3 over 2. So we have 1 plus 4 square root of 3 all over 2 square root of 17. So multiplied by the square root of 17, we get square root of 17 plus 4 square root of 51. 3 times 17, yeah. And then on the bottom we have 2 times 17 or 34. And that's your answer. Cotangent is positive, but the x is negative. So that means if x is negative, then y has to be negative. Okay? So we are in the third quadrant. Cotangent is x over y, so that's negative square root of 3 over negative 1. So 1 squared plus square root of 3 squared. Since you're squaring, the negatives don't mean anything. So your hypotenuse is 1 plus 3, 4. So the square root is 2. So my hypotenuse is 2. All right, so the tangent of an addition. So tangent of the first plus tangent of the second all over 1 minus the tangent of the first times the tangent of the second. So what do we have? Tangent of x. So the tangent here of x is opposite over adjacent, or positive 1 over square root of 3, plus the tangent of pi over 6 is 1/2 over the square root of 3 over 2, or 1 over the square root of 3. Okay, so now 1 minus 1 over the square root of 3 times 1 over the square root of 3. So this is 2 over the square root of 3. On the bottom we have 1 minus 1/3, so common denominator. 2 over the square root of 3, and now we have 3 minus 1 is 2/3. Top times the reciprocal of the bottom gives us 6 over 2 square root of 3, multiplied by the square root of 3, 6 square root of 3 over 2 times 3 is 6, so the answer should be the square root of 3. All right, 22. Cosecant is the same as sine, so that would be the y value is negative. Cotangent is x over y. It's positive, so if y is negative, then x has to be positive. Oh, cotangent is positive, I'm sorry. So that means x has to be negative as well for cotangent to be positive. So again, we're in the third quadrant. The sine of x is equal to negative 3/5. So the opposite over hypotenuse. So this will be a negative 4 there if you do your Pythagorean theorem. All right, so now we have the tangent of a negative. So it's the tangent of the first minus the tangent of the second, all over 1 plus tangent of the first times the tangent of the second. So the tangent of x is opposite over adjacent, or positive 3/4. Tangent of pi over 4 is going to be 1. And 1 plus 3/4 times 1. So what do we have here? This is going to be 4 over 4. So negative 1/4 all over 1 plus 3/4. Again, you got to get a common denominator. 4 plus 3 is 7. So negative 1/4 over 7/4. Or negative 1 over 4 times 4 over 7. Negative 1 over 7 is the answer. Okay, so we have the addition of a sine. So that's going to be the sine of the first, cosine of the second, plus cosine of the first, sine of the second. Okay, so cosine of alpha is 4/5, 4 adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's a 3/4/5. And then we have beta, okay, tangent is 8/15, opposite over adjacent. So 225 plus 64, 225 plus 64, 289. That's 17. Okay, now, sine of alpha is 3/5. Cosine of beta is adjacent over hypotenuse. cosine of alpha is 4/5, and the sine of beta is opposite over hypotenuse. So that's 45 plus 32 all over 85, and that's 77/85. So just draw two triangles for that information that you have up there. All right, so that's A. So now you got to do cosine of alpha plus beta. Okay, so let's kind of move this over a little bit here. So the cosine of alpha plus beta, so it's an addition, so cosine of alpha, cosine of beta, minus sine of alpha, sine of beta. All right, so cosine of alpha, again, is 4/5. Cosine of beta is 15/17. Sine of alpha is 3/5. Sine of beta is 8/17. Okay, so that's 60 minus 24 all over 85. 60 minus 24 is 36 over 85. And then part C, so that was B. So part C, the quadrant containing alpha plus beta. Okay, so our hints are in A and C. The sine of alpha plus beta is a positive answer, and the cosine of alpha plus beta is a positive answer. So what quadrant is the sine and cosine both positive? The first quadrant. Okay, again, here we go. Cosecant goes with sine, so this would be sine of C, or alpha, sorry, is 12/13. It's positive. The cotangent is x over y, and it's positive. Okay, so the cotangent is x over y, 4/3. All right, so first quadrant, opposite over hypotenuse, and so that must be 5, 5, 12, 13. And the cotangent, x and y are both positive. That's going to be adjacent over opposite. Okay, so this is a 3, 4, 5. So that's beta. All right, so now we do sine addition again. The addition of the sines would be sine times cosine. Sine of the first, cosine of the second, and plus the cosine of the first, sine of the second. So sine of alpha is 12/13, sorry. And the cosine of beta is 4/5. Cosine of alpha is 5/13, and the sine of beta is 3/5. So that gives us 48 plus 15 all over 65. 48 and 15 is 63 over 65. So the sine of alpha and beta is positive. Now B, a tangent. Addition tangent, this would be tangent of the first, tangent of alpha, plus tangent of beta, all over 1 minus tangent times tangent. All right, so the tangent of alpha is going to be 12/5 plus the tangent of beta, which is 3/4, all over 1 minus 12/5 times 3/4. So common denominator, they both go into 20. So 48 and 15, 63 over 20. And the denominator, 1 minus 36 over 20. So 20 over 20. 20 minus 36 is negative 16 all over 20. So 63/20 times the reciprocal of the bottom. So negative 63 over 16. Okay, now, tangent is negative. The sine of both of those is positive. So what quadrant are you in? So if the tangent's negative and the sine addition is positive, that means x has to be negative. So x is negative and y is positive. X is negative, y is positive. We are in the second quadrant. Sine of alpha is negative 4/5. Okay, so negative 4/5. negative, and secant is cosine. Cosine of beta is 3/5 for a third quadrant angle alpha and a first quadrant angle beta. All right, so yeah, so your alpha is going to be -4. Your hypotenuse is 5. So this is -3 for x. And a first quadrant for beta, okay, make it a little bit bigger so we can see it, is cosine is 3/5, so the adjacent and hypotenuse, so it's a 3, 4, 5 triangle there as well. Okay, here we go. The sine addition again is, let's do A, so the sine of the first, cosine of beta, second, plus cosine of the first, sine of beta. Sine of alpha, we already have is -4/5. Cosine of beta, we already have that, 3/5. Cosine of alpha is 3/5. The sine of beta is 4/5. I'm sorry, cosine of alpha is -3/5. All right, so what do we have? -12 plus -12 all over 25. -24 over 25. All right, part B, tangent addition. So the tangent of alpha plus the tangent of beta all over 1 minus the tangent of alpha, tangent of beta. So the tangent of alpha is -4 over -3. Tangent of beta is 4/3. 1 minus -4 over -3 is positive 4/3. Oops, times 4/3. So what do we have here? On the top you have 8 over 3. On the bottom, 1 is 3 over 3. So that's 16 over 9. I guess we need to do 9 over 9. So 16 over 9. So 9 minus 16 is -7 over 9. So 8 over 3 times -9 over 7. So that's -3, -24 over 7. So here we have the sine is negative, the tangent is negative, so cosine must be positive. So if cosine is positive and sine is negative, you're in the fourth quadrant. All right. The tangent of -7/24. So tangent is negative in the second, fourth quadrant. Cotangent is positive. All right, for a second quadrant angle, alpha. All right, so that tells us tangents here. So alpha, tangent is opposite over adjacent. I'm sorry, that's +7. That's a -24. Let me just erase that. +7, and your x is -24. And then your beta is in the third quadrant. Let's just draw another one. Beta is here. And that's 3 over 4, or -3 and -4. All right, so this is 25 here. Okay, here we go. So now we do all these things. A, the addition of sine. So the sine of the first plus, times the sine of the second. Cosine. Oh my gosh, losing my brain. Cosine of the second plus cosine of the first, sine of the second. So the sine of alpha, let's keep it on the same line here. Sine of alpha is 7 over 25. Cosine of beta is -3/5. Cosine of alpha is -24 over 25. Sine of beta is -4 over 5. So -21, and 4 times 20 is 80, and 16, 96. All of that's over 25. So 75 over 25, or 3. Okay, so now B, cosine addition, is cosine of alpha, cosine of beta, minus sine of alpha, sine of beta. So here we got cosine of alpha is negative 24 over 25. Cosine of beta is negative 3 over 5. Minus the sine of alpha, 7 over 25. And the sine of beta is negative 4 over 5. So what do we really have here? 72 minus a negative 28 all over 125. So plus, that'd be change, plus. That's 100 over 125. You can simplify that by 5, and you get 20 over 25 by 5 again. You get 4 over 5, 4/5. All right, C. The tangent addition is tangent of alpha plus tangent of beta all over 1 minus tangent alpha tangent beta. Tangent of alpha is negative 7/24. Tangent of beta is negative 4 over negative 3. 1 minus 7/24 and 4/3. Negative over negative is positive. So you gotta get a common denominator. So negative 7 plus 32 is 25 over 24. And this is going to be 1 minus negative 28 over 72. Change, so 72 over 72 plus 28 is 100 over 72. 25 over 24. And now you do 25 over 24 times the reciprocal, 72 over 100. Reduce, let's see, 24 goes into 72 evenly 3 times. So the answer is 3/4. Part D. The subtraction of your signs would be sine of alpha cosine of beta minus cosine of alpha sine of beta. So what do we get here? The sine of alpha, again, we have all these around here somewhere. Just keep looking at your picture. Sine of alpha is 7/25. Cosine of beta is negative 3/5. Minus the cosine of alpha, negative 24 over 25. And the sine of beta is negative 4/5. So negative 21 minus, negative times a negative is positive, but you still have the minus sign there. 24 times 4 is 80, that's 96. And it's all over 125. So that is negative 21 minus 96, or 21 and 96, is negative 117 over 125. All right, and then E, move this up just a little bit. So the cosine of subtraction is cosine of the first, cosine of the second, plus sine of the first, sine of the second. So I'm just going to use these values here because they're in the same positions, except we're going to add them. So negative 24 over 25 times negative 3 over 5 plus 7 over 25 times negative 4 over 5. So that gives us positive 72 plus a negative 28 over 125. So 72 minus 28. So 44 over 125. Then F is tangent of alpha minus tangent of beta. So tangent of, tangent of alpha minus beta. So use your tangent subtraction one. So tangent of alpha minus tangent of beta over 1 plus tangent alpha tangent beta. So I'm just going to use C here to help us. So that's negative 7/24 plus 4/3 all over 1 plus negative 7/24 times 4/3. I'm sorry, this was a minus sign here. Okay, so again, you get a common denominator. You get negative 7 minus 32 all over 24. And then on the bottom, you get 1 minus minus 28 over 72. 7 and 32 is negative 39 over 24. And 72 over 72. 72 minus 28 is going to give you 44 over 72. So we get negative 39 over 24 times 72 over 44. That's 3. And 39 and 44 doesn't reduce by anything. So 3 times 39 is negative 117 all over 44. And those should be your answers for 26. All right, number 27. All right, sine of a minus b. So first of all, let's do cosine of a is negative 2/5. So x is negative. All right. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So left and up. So 5, and this is negative 2. All right, so now we need the other side. So 2 squared, let's see, 25 minus the 2 squared will be the y squared, so 21. So the square root of 21 is the y there. And again, this is alpha. Cosine of beta is negative 3/5. Okay, so again, you could do a negative 3 over 5 in the same way. So negative 3 and 5. And again, that would be 25 minus the 3 squared, or 16. And again, that's going to be 4. 3, 4, 5. All right, so now we're going to do part A, the sine of alpha minus beta. So look at your formula sheet and find the subtraction. That's going to be the sine of alpha cosine of beta minus the cosine of alpha sine of beta. So the sine of alpha at the top, sine of alpha, is the opposite over hypotenuse. So that's going to be the square root of 21 over 5. Okay, and now we have the cosine of beta, and beta is down here. Cosine of beta is negative 3/5, which we have right there. Cosine of alpha is right here, negative 2/5. And the sine of beta is going to be 4/5. So that's negative 3 square root of 21 minus, it'd be a plus now because change, 8 all over 25. Okay, so now we know that the sine is negative. Let's see here. Now we do b. B is the cosine of alpha minus beta. So the cosine subtraction is cosine of alpha cosine of beta plus sine of alpha sine of beta. All right, so cosine of alpha we already know is negative 2/5. Cosine of beta we know is negative 3/5. The sine of alpha is going to be square root of 21 over 5, and the sine of beta is 4/5. So here we have a positive 6 plus 4 square root of 21 all over 25. So now we know that the sine is negative, the sine value is negative, the cosine is positive, and so part C is the quadrant containing alpha minus beta. So if sine, cosine, sine is y and cosine is x. So x is positive and y is negative. That puts us in the fourth quadrant. Okay, again, here we go. Let's draw these. Sine of 2/3. Sine of alpha is 2/3. So is the y over, should draw this a little bit bigger, y over the hypotenuse. So now we have 9 minus the 4, that equals a squared, for a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So it's the square root of 5. That goes here. And then beta is negative 1/3, it's cosine, so it's the x value. So the cosine is negative 1. This is beta here. And 3 is your hypotenuse. So now we have 9 minus 1 is equal to the b squared. So the square root of 8, or 4 and 2, would be 2 square root of 2. So 2 square root of 2 is going to be the y value. Now let's do our parts here. A, the addition sign formulas are sine and cosine. So sine of alpha, cosine of beta, plus cosine of alpha, sine of beta. Okay, sine of alpha we have here is 2/3. Cosine of beta we already have, negative 1/3. Cosine of alpha is square root of 5 over 3. And the sine of beta is 2 square root of 2 over 3. So negative 2 plus 2 square root of 10 all over 9. So there we know that the sine, or the y value, is negative. Part B, tangent. The tangent addition is going to be the tangent of alpha plus the tangent of beta all over 1 minus tangent times tangent. All right, so tangent of alpha is going to be 2 over square root of 5. And the tangent of beta is going to be 2 square root of 2 over negative 1. So 1 minus 2 over the square root of 5 times 2 square root of 2 over negative 1. All right, so let's just start this up here. And we get, got to get a common denominator here. So we're going to multiply the right side by the square root of 5. Okay, and so we get 2 plus 2 square root of 10 all over. I guess it needs to be positive. We'll put the negative out in front here. So let's pull this negative 1, put the negative out here. So this will be 2 plus 2 square root of 10 all over the square root of 5. And that is all over 1 minus 4 square root of 2 and a negative square root of 5. Change. We need a square root of 5 common denominator. So again, 2 plus 2 square root of 10 over the square root of 5 over square root of 5 plus 4 square root of 2 all over the square root of 5. So now we take the top times the reciprocal of the bottom. And we already see something's going to cancel. Square root of 5s are out. And now there's a problem here. We have 2 plus the square root of 10 over the square root of 5 plus 4 square root of 2. So now we have to multiply by the difference of squares. Square root of 5 minus 4 square root of 2. So on the bottom, we're going to get 5 minus 16 times 2 is 32. So the bottom is negative 27. On the top, get 2 square root of 5 minus 8 square root of 2 plus 5 square root of 10 minus 4 square root of 20. All right, so the square root of 20, we're going to break that down into 4 and 5, which is 2 square root of 5. So now what do we have here? We have 2 square root of 5, and we got a minus 8 square root of 2 plus 5 square root of 10, and then we have minus 2 times 4 would be 8 square root of 5. So we can put those two together for a final answer of, let's say 2 minus 8 would be negative 6. Negative 6 square root of 5 plus 8, that's a minus 8 square root of 2 plus 5 square root of 10 all over negative 27. All right, so I know this is positive because I look back at this area right here, and these are all positive values. So this is going to be a positive answer, even though it doesn't look like it down here. So the tangent is positive. All right, so let's take a look at this. We got to do the quadrant of a plus b. So part C, the quadrant, you have the tangent is positive. All right, and that's going to be y over x. And then on part A, the sign was, let's see what the sign ends up being. Negative 2 plus 2 square root of 10 is going to be positive. All right, so sine is positive, or the y value is positive. And if the y is positive and the whole tangent is positive, then x has to be positive. So we are in the first quadrant. All right, so let's go ahead and figure out the addition sign problem here. So that's sine of theta times cosine of pi plus cosine of theta sine of pi. All right, we don't know the sine of theta, but the cosine at pi, the x value at pi is -1. So that's going to be a negative sine of theta. And now the sine at pi is 0. So 0 times the cosine of theta is 0. And therefore we have the right side of the equal sign. All right, number 30. Addition again. So the sine of x cosine of pi over 2 plus cosine of x sine of pi over 2. So we don't know the sine of x, but the cosine at 90 degrees is 0. So 0 times the sine of x is 0. Now on the right side, we have the sine of pi over 2. What's the sine at pi over 2? It's 1. So we have 1 times the cosine of x, or cosine of x. All right, so let's write these things out. The sine of x, so this is a subtraction, so sine cosine 5 pi over 2 minus cosine of x, sine of 5 pi over 2. Okay, so now 5 pi over 2. We have 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3, 4, 5 pi over 2. So what's the cosine there? That's 0. So 0 times sine of x is 0. Now we have the sine of 5 pi over 2. That's 1. 1 times a negative cosine is negative cosine of x. All right, subtraction again. Sine of theta cosine of 3 pi over 2 minus cosine of theta sine of 3 pi over 2. So 3 pi over 2 is down here at the bottom. So the cosine is still 0. 0 times sine is 0. And we don't know the cosine of theta. The sine down there is -1. So that makes this positive cosine of theta. 33. Negative, the subtraction of cosines. So it is cosine theta times cosine of pi plus sine of theta sine pi. All right, so cosine of theta we don't know. Cosine of pi is -1. Sine of theta we don't know. The sine at pi is 0. So that's gone, and this makes this negative cosine of theta. Check. Now the addition of cosine is going to be cosine of x cosine of pi over 2 and minus sine of x sine of pi over 2. So we don't know the cosine of x, but the cosine at pi over 2 is 0. So that's gone. And we don't know the sine of x, and the sine of pi over 2 is 1. So this is negative sine of x. Check. All right, cosine addition is cosine of x cosine of 3 pi over 2 minus sine of x sine of 3 pi over 2. So cosine of x, and at 3 pi over 2, the cosine is 0. And we have the sine of x, and the sine of 3 pi over 2 is -1. So that makes that 0, and the negative makes it positive sine of x. Check. The negative cosine subtraction is cosine of theta cosine of 5 pi over 2 plus sine of theta sine of 5 pi over 2. So cosine of theta, cosine 5 pi over 2 is at pi over 2. So what's cosine of pi over 2? 0. Sine of theta, and the sine at pi over 2 is 1. So this is going to be sine of theta. Check. Tangent is going to be the tangent of x minus the tangent of pi over 2 all over 1 plus tangent x tangent of 2 pi over 2. All right, I don't know the tangent of x. Tangent in 90 degrees. So at 90 degrees, That's y over x, so it's undefined. All right, not infinity, undefined. Okay, and 1 plus tangent of x times undefined. Doesn't really matter. You're done at this point, so this can't be done. So the question is, how is it equal to negative cotangent of x? Okay, so the cotangent of x is x over y. Okay, so if we look at our graphs, negative pi over 2, pi over 2, so we see that the tangent is undefined at pi over 2. All right, now let's do this one in blue. The cotangent is at pi over 2. I'm sorry. So if we draw the cotangent, but notice you have a negative out in front, so that's a vertical reflection. So it's going to make it look like this. So it's a vertical reflection. So how's this the same? Because this is inside, and we're going to move to the right by pi over 2. And if we move tangent to the right by pi over 2, it hits exactly where the negative cotangent of x is. So that's how it works, but it's hard to solve when something's undefined. So you have to know your graphs, and you got to be able to understand shifting. So 38 is going to be your subtraction. So again, so tangent of pi minus tangent of theta is equal to 1 plus tangent of pi, tangent of theta. All right, tangent at pi. So we're at pi here. This is negative 1, 0. So y over x is 0, and minus the tangent of theta. So 1 plus tangent of theta is 0 times the tangent of pi is 0. Tangent of theta is there. So 0 times the tangent of theta is gone. We have a negative tangent of theta on top and a 1 on the bottom. There's your negative tangent of theta. Okay, addition, tangent of theta plus tangent of pi over 2, and 1 minus the tangent of theta, tangent of pi over 2. And we know tangent of pi over 2, let's just go ahead and draw what this is. At pi over 2, the tangent is undefined. So again, this is one of those undefined things. But we're shifting to the left by pi over 2. So now it's going to look like this. And we move our asymptotes as well from 0 to negative pi. All right, so how's that negative cotangent of theta? Well, it's the same thing because tangent also is over here. And this is 3 pi over 2. And if we shift this left by pi over 2, it looks like this, which is exactly where negative cotangent is. Remember, negative flips the cotangent. Cotangent usually looks like that. So the negative is a vertical reflection, which puts it right on top of the tangent. All right, let's go with tangent addition again. Tangent of x plus tangent of pi, 1 minus tangent x, tangent y, tangent pi. So tangent at pi is 0. So tangent of x times 0 is 0, leaving 1 on the bottom, and tangent on the top, so this is just tangent of x. Verify the identity. All right, so here we go. Let's do our addition here. So sine of theta, cosine of pi over 4, plus sine of pi over 4, cosine of theta. All right, cosine of pi over 4 is square root 2 over 2. So we have square root 2 over 2 times the sine of theta, plus sine of pi over 4 is still square root 2 over 2, cosine of theta. Well, that's exactly what you get if you distribute the square root 2 over 2 through that parentheses. All right? Or you factor out the square root of 2 over 2 and you get sine of theta plus cosine of theta. And now you can say check. It matches the right side. Same thing with cosine. We have cosine of theta, cosine of pi over 4, minus sine of theta, sine of pi over 4. Cosine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2, cosine of theta. And again, sine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2, sine of theta. So we can factor out a square root of 2 over 2, and we get cosine theta minus sine of theta. Check. Tangent of u plus tangent of pi over 4 all over 1 minus tangent of u, tangent of pi over 4. All right, so at pi over 4, x and y are the same. So the tangent at pi over 4 would be 1. And so we get 1 plus tangent u on top and 1 minus tangent u on bottom. Check. Forgot to turn the recording on. Tangent of x minus tangent of pi over 4 all over 1 plus tangent x, tangent pi over 4. Again, tangent of pi over 4 is 1, so you have tangent of x minus 1 over 1 plus tangent of x, which can be switched because of commutative property of multiplication, or of addition. So check. Okay, so now the addition formula here, cosine of u cosine of v, that'd be minus sine of u sine v, plus, we have this one, cosine of u cosine of v plus sine u sine v. And look what happens. You have a negative sine u sine v and a positive sine u sine v. So those are gone. And so what do we have? Cosine of u cosine of v plus cosine of u cosine of v. Well, those are two things. So 2 cosine of u cosine of v. Check. Addition again. Sine of u cosine of v minus, plus sine of v cosine of u, and then plus this will be plus sine of u cosine of v minus cosine of u sine of v. Okay, so now we have the minus cosine u sine of v and the positive cosine of u sine of v. So that's gone. And again, you have two of these. Sine of u cosine of v plus sine of u cosine of v. So there's two of those. Check. All right, addition. Sine of u cosine v plus cosine of u sine of v. And we got to multiply this part together. So sine of u cosine of v minus cosine of u sine of v. Watch what happens. Well, this is a plus b and a minus b. That's the difference of squares. Right? So you get sine squared u cosine squared v. Okay? And minus cosine squared u sine squared v.